Deadly Grounds Coffee knows how important your coffee is to you. Every batch is roasted to perfection with a unique special method that brings out the richest, deepest, smoothest flavor you'll ever find. We're coffee freaks too, and deadly serious about our brew. Just one sip and you'll know why we say, once you go deadly, you don't go back. It's truly coffee to die for. So when you're ready to get a little deadly, get online and order yours at getdeadly.com. It's coffee so good, it's scary.
Retro Ridoctopus.
Greetings and welcome once again to another episode of the Retro Ridoctopus Cephala podcast, the only show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome. Oh, I screwed that up. We still, you know the intro. We're part of the Dorkening. You know the deal. We're part of the Dorkening and Inebri-Art podcast networks. And as always, we're brought to you tonight by Deadly Grounds Coffee. Coffee to die for. I am your host. My name's TV's Parasite Steve. And with me, as always, are my compatriots, TV's Nintendo.
Hello.
Hi, TV's Nintendo.
Sorry.
And TV's 8-Bit Alchemy.
Although I forgot to actually change my name on it to TV's 8-Bit Alchemy, so hi. Thanks for making me an honorary member of the club.
Luckily, most people are just listening to this and they don't even know that.
Nice. Well, there is a video, and for you listening, you're missing out on the visual gag.
Yes, that's very true. Well, tonight, if I'm a little nervous, you guys got to cut me a break, because tonight we have a true childhood hero of all of ours on the show tonight. Just absolutely so excited tonight. Our guest is a legendary comedian and writer, best known as TV's Frank from Mystery Science Theater 3000. He's the author of more than 6 books, and currently he performs with Trace Beaulieu in the monthly live streaming movie riffing show, The Mads Are Back. Locked tonight in the Brig, it's Frank Conniff. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Hey, hi. Thanks for imprisoning me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, absolutely no problem. We like to imprison people that we like for absolutely no good reason.
It's an honor just to be incarcerated.
There is less human feces in there than there was this morning, because I cleaned it right before we started recording. I did that just for you, Frank.
Well, there's more human feces now that I'm here, let me tell you.
Oh, good. Thank you for replenishing our stock. It's good to have.
Be that as it may, I trust you're comfortable down there in the Brig.
I make a nice living.
Oh, well, while you're down there, take full advantage of all the amenities we've laid out. There's Moxie and Slurm in the mini fridge, and the chaise is actually quite comfortable. The upholstery is only 70% upholstery of polyester. The other 30% was actually wove from the silken locks of Arch Hall Jr.
Oh wow, that's quite. At my age, I'm more of an Arch Hall Senior kind of person, but that works for me.
Now Arch Hall Jr. looks like Arch Hall Senior.
Yeah,
right.
I would imagine.
He's evolved in his old age.
That's very true. So once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are here to promote one of your books. You have a brand new book out. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to that in a second. First, I want to talk about your awesome current show, because I am such a big fan of The Mads Are Back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it so much. We catch it all the time. First of all, we just recently had Chris Gersbeck on the show, and he's a great guy. Really great interview. Really awesome. We had a great time with Chris. And he was telling us a bunch of stuff about how the show got started, and I'd love to hear some things from your perspective too, because it really seems like you were the genesis of this whole thing.
I was the genesis, and the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and the Yes, and the King Crimson of the whole thing.
Wow, man, that's progressive of you.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
Well, I forgot to mention Gentle Giant, or maybe I did.
Oh, Gentle Giant. Yes.
Nice. Not the Jolly Green Giant. That's for
No.
peas.
And nobody thinks of Star Castle, but to be fair, they only had 3 albums. So,
That's right.
so your most recent episode on the Mads Are Back was A Night of Shorts number 11.
Right.
And I have to say, Frank, this has changed the way I think about Mylar.
That was we riffed like a 22-minute movie about Mylar. It was an epic short. Most of the shorts we do aren't more than 10 minutes. This guy wouldn't shut up about Mylar, and
So much to say.
it was a bit of an ordeal, let me tell you. But we made it through, and
It never ended. It just
Yeah.
it just could not stop. And for the first, I don't know, 15 minutes of that 20 minutes, he's not really saying any actual uses, like specifically. He's sort of being very broad about the types
Yeah.
of things you could do with Mylar.
Yeah, it's and as I pointed out, he never even mentions what Mylar ended up being. Its greatest use was for geeks to preserve comic books. You know?
That's right. You said
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
True.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
I use
So
Mylar
funny.
bags at work. They're not gas permeable, but I feel like Mylar does not require a 22-minute epic. But you guys just worked with it. You just
Yeah, we
did
did.
what
we
needed
did.
to be done.
Yeah,
so-
TV's 8-Bit Alchemy is a scientist in real life. We should.
Oh,
mention
is that true?
I do science just like you once did on
Oh.
TV.
Well, I think real science is a little more impressive. So than the
I
fake
don't know.
science that we did. But I'm
Hardly.
very
The number of
I'm-
eyes on me, minimal. The number of eyes
Well-
on TVs, Frank, you've made an impact, sir.
Well, that's just the way life is that people who do actual science get no recognition, and people who dress up in funny costumes and dance around the stage get their names known.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe 8-Bit, you should graft that butt of a cat onto the butt of a dog, and then do really important work. You're
And
gonna get
make
noticed.
the inside out, make the opposite cat dog. Is that what you're alluding to? Because everyone wonders why is cat dog the front half of both a cat.
Right?
and
Where are the butts? for
Where's
cat
the
dog?
butt version of cat dog that only
Well,
poops and doesn't
It
talk?
was Dr. Forrester's experiment in college or something.
Could very well be. Could very
Yeah,
well
I
be.
remember that one. So also you guys just did before Night of Shorts number 11. You guys had a very off format big event.
Oh
you
yeah,
guys
yeah,
did.
yeah.
And I definitely wanted to mention that because it was so fun. You guys did Dark Star.
Right.
And
Interactive movie.
right. And in talking about it with Chris, we kind of all were just sort of like, spitballing and, maybe we're wrong. So definitely tell us if we are. But it seemed to all of us that this was not only your first time riffing yourself, something you actually starred in, you and Trace, but also the first time you were doing it like without a script, seemingly. Now I'm sure you've done live events, but
Yeah, we've done live events where we've improvised. We mainly prefer to work with a script. It's of course, how we always did it on Mystery Science Theater when we did Cinematic Titanic live, and in the Mads Are Back live too. We always started with a script, although with a lot of, especially in the Mads Are Back, there was a lot of adding and embellishing and improvising. Although we did, Trace and I were hired at this great theater in, I think the Jump Cut Theater in Jacksonville, Florida.
okay.
Hired us. They paid to show La La Land, and they hired us to riff it, and that was
Nice.
and that was an improvised riff, and it turned out great. But this Dark Star was improvised because Trace and I think all of us were like, yeah, we'll do this, but don't ask us to lift a finger and put in any effort.
I'm not taking writing time for this.
Yes.
All I'm doing is sitting down and watching a movie with a microphone.
That's you're absolutely right. That was totally our attitude. We're not, and because that would have been real work to actually write a script for that. But it was very fun to be reunited with J. Elvis Weinstein and Mary Jo Pehl and Bees McKeever.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch
event.
too. Yeah, and I think if there was a script, it would have made it something that it shouldn't have been. I think that being so raw and so honest allowed you guys to be off kilter in a way that we don't usually get to see you. Like you guys were more like,
it was like a
you're
reaction
laughing.
video. Like had you not gotten to see
real,
that whole movie in forever or ever?
No, that was the first time I ever saw it in any form because it was originally a CD-ROM, and I've never watched a CD-ROM, and I don't play video games or anything like that. So it was the first time I'd literally seen it, and so it was a fun experience to hang out with those guys and do it.
Yeah, it's super cool. It gives it like a very fun, unique energy of like it's a reaction video because you're seeing this thing that you're in for the first time, and also doing just organic riffs on it. Yeah, it's a real special event that if anyone out there didn't get to catch our interview with Chris Garsbeck, if you're catching this one, make a point to go check out Matt Back's Dark Star episode. It's definitely one not to miss.
Yeah, that's the Mads are back and they brought snacks. That's our episode with that.
Nice.
I also wanted to shout out one of my personal episodes that I just loved so much. You guys did the Brain Eaters, and I just randomly like this movie a lot. Like I don't know, it's because something that Mystery Science Theater has given me is it's given me a superpower, which is to enjoy bad movies even if you guys aren't there. On a level I don't think I would have ever been able to. There's a charm now that I think you had to sort of explain through the presentation of the way you guys did your show. I think it's just sort of, I don't know if it was the point of it, probably not, but that is definitely what it did
Oh
for
yeah,
me.
I feel the same way about these movies that we watch now. There is a real charm to them, and they're very enjoyable in their own way. They have especially like for instance Ed Wood movies have a total kind of personality to them that are completely unique and that nobody could really replicate ever. And there's something to me, there's something very special about that, and I love Ed Wood's work. He lacks certain skills in terms of writing and stuff, but the movies still really come through, and he really left a lasting legacy, and it's a really wonderful thing, I think.
I agree. And shout out to our very, very dear friend Mark Vandervalk, who always reads he's always up for reading some Ed Wood smut. Whenever we have this reading group that meets a few times a year. We just get drunk and read bad stories. Mm-hmm. So
that was the Oprah book club was like that, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
No, and it often does devolve depending on how much booze there has been consumed. It turns into Mystery Science Theater. But he always reads Ed Wood smut, and it's always a treat. But yeah, no, we're fans. But there's something about the Brain Eaters, like it's just so silly, and it has like the funniest rocket at the end. Like when they discover the rocket, it's just like a paper towel. It's a giant paper, like toilet paper tube. Like it looks like it. This is I don't know if it was made out of sheet metal or cardboard or what, but oh man, it's just so funny.
Yeah, it's fun, and the other thing too is these films. The ones that we do from the 50s or the 60s, they're very unself-conscious. They're very sincere, and they're not in on the joke. They're sincerely making what they hope will be a good movie, and that to me really adds to the charm of them.
Totally. Yeah, like when you have someone who has so much, sincerity and good intention with what they're making, it's like
Hmm.
without the lens of things like Mystery Science Theater, you would kind of just judge it at face value and say that it's a terrible movie. But like
Right.
through the lens of comedy and using it as like a basis for, laughing and enjoying it, you're getting a different enjoyment out of it initially, and then it kind of teaches you to just appreciate the movie as it is, and like
Hmm.
of the thing that it made, and you're like, this is such a very unique trajectory or like any kind of thought process on something you decide to like it has
Yeah.
to go through so many layers, but by the end of the day you're like, I kind of like these like bad but truly trying movies, and it's like
Mhm.
it's just such a surprising thing to feel like. But yeah, it's definitely how I feel too. um
Hmm.
Mm.
Right.
it's
Yeah,
fascinating, really.
I feel the same way with these older movies. Like I actually enjoy these older movies more than modern movies.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way, and the thing about some of these films that we do, they're not corporate the way modern films are. They're
Mhm.
not. They're the result of people maybe thinking, let's do an exploitation film, let's do a horror film, it'll play in a drive-in, the kids will like it or whatever. But it's not the result of like a million decisions in a boardroom, the way like big studio films are.
Mm.
Yep.
Right.
I don't think we've ever riffed a film that I disliked as much as say Black Adam, for instance.
Oh,
You know, I mean, these kind of films, because like a film like that, and I know there are a lot of talented people involved in something like that, but it's also, you could tell they just threw in everything they thought would be appealing to people.
Totally.
Mhm.
And there's nothing organic about the process of entertainment in
Mm.
these films, and then they, as a result, they're not entertaining.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, I think with something like Black Adam, that's like literally the most perfect choice, and something like that is a good example of all the money in the world with no soul.
Mm-hmm.
And something like The Brain Eaters, which is, I'm not saying it's a good movie, but
Right.
it
You have to
is.
appreciate it.
Yeah, they had a lot of soul, and they were trying to, even when you're struggling with creating what the narrative is, like Ed Wood, his movies were so all over the place. I think his best one is Bride of the Monster, because I feel like it has the best, most cohesive story for Ed. But like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're trying really hard, but you're still not quite landing what the narrative is, even there you can appreciate the soul
It's really
that's
going
there.
for something.
They're
It's
really
Yeah.
trying.
Exactly.
And they don't have the budget. They don't have all the money in the
No.
world. They only have the creativity that they have, whatever, however amount that is, or however great or little. Like in Ed's case, it wasn't that much, but he really wanted to.
Right.
And I think that it's literally the polar opposite of something like Black Adam. So it's interesting you brought that up.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of films are not able to be risk takers these days, and I think this was something I was talking to someone about with
this has come up. This is
with like video games and stuff too. But like just the concept that like so much mass like big budget media now costs so much more money than it
Right.
used to.
Yeah.
That now everything is like a risk reward evaluation. There's so few creators out there that are able to just put out the actual distilled idea that they want. There's always going to be these massive corporations and things that are influencing stuff because they need it to make a return. And so that's why when people ask like, how come people just keep making the same movies all over the time, and people keep making the same games and telling the same stories, it's like, because it's less risky, and
Right.
people are feeling like it's a little bit more surefire of a bet, which obviously it isn't always at all.
Mhm.
But yeah, it does when you see older cinema and things like, there's this sense of daring that is not really around as much, where like they're just going to tell you the story that they want to tell you, and they're just going to do whatever it is, and it might be ridiculous and it might be totally grounded or whatever, but I think that like people were just really trying to do what they had in their heads back then, and didn't have as much other influences steering the ship, which is a shame.
Right. Yeah.
But
interesting stuff, though. It is a bummer. Something like the Brain Eaters. I mean, I don't know how much it cost. I don't know what the budget was, but it could have been $10,000, could have been $20,000, and at that point, maybe that was considered a normal low budget. Now, what's a normal low budget? I mean, even something like Rob Zombie, which is considered low budget, and he spends how many millions to make his movies.
Right. I think 30 million is kind of considered like a mid or low budget film in the studio.
Yeah. Okay, so according to IMDb, Brain Eaters was made for $30,000, and that was 1958. So
and it was considered independently made too.
That's very low budget, but they did what they did, and also just saying somebody like Ed Nelson, who gets a lot of crap, compared to somebody like Dwayne Johnson. I'm sorry, Dwayne, he seems like a good guy, but I don't know. Like, I think Ed Nelson was all right.
Ed Nelson was a good actor, and he worked a lot, and he went on from that. I believe he was a regular on Peyton Place on TV, and he was in a ton of Quinn Martin guest spots throughout the 70s. He worked a lot. He was a good actor.
He was in the Mole Men, right? That's Ed Nelson.
I don't remember, but if I know he was in the Brain Eaters, and Trace and I both recognized him from the many TV appearances he did.
Right. He was too. That's a good one. That's a good episode you guys did. But I want to transition into your books. You are an author of you're not just a one-trick pony. You do all sorts of stuff. You write TV, you write live comedy, you write books, you're an author. So some of your books, because you have, I could find, I think like 7 or 8.
I've written 9.
9. Okay. So some of the titles are Billy Gillis, 7-year-old screenwriter, Reform School Cinderella, You're Ruining the Dystopia for Everyone. Actually, that one has an exclamation point at the end. You're ruining the dystopia for everyone. I think is how you're supposed to say that. 25 Mystery Science Theater 3000 films that changed my life in no way whatsoever.
That was my first one.
And various other ones. Your new one is called Dark Apnea. And what I glean from these titles and from reading the synopsis and from reading from looking at the covers, it seems like with each book you're playing with a different genre. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think it's very safe to say that I start with a genre, and then I really just do my own version of the genre is like a jumping off point for me to just write a bunch of weird stuff. And Dark Apnea is I wrote partly because I think one thing our culture is really lacking is superhero stories.
Oh, true.
So so I and especially superhero stories about dark, brooding, traumatized superheroes. So
there's just not that many people out there.
No.
Yeah. So
It's
mine is
risky, right?
Dark Apnea is that kind of superhero, very depressed, troubled. He works in the nighttime, and but he's very into how depressed he is. It's part of his vision of himself, and it's basically I'm giving Batman the Get Smart treatment in this book. It's like a Get Smart version of Batman, but it's also, in the course of writing it, there's a lot of stuff came up about just the nature of unhappiness and depression, and how some people have trauma in their lives and they struggle to overcome it. He has a sidekick superhero, a woman whose superhero moniker is unpaid intern, and she's someone who's had genuine trauma in her life, and she's struggled and has worked really hard to overcome it through therapy and a lot of stuff. And Dark Apnea is a guy who's hasn't really had any trauma in his life, but he embraces it anyway. He wants it to be a part of his persona. So there's kind of the contrast between those two characters running through the book.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, we've had some, dark. I mean, obviously, you're being facetious. We've had lots. So we're drowning in superheroes, of course. But despite that fact, I mean, you guys. Now you've seen heroes with domino masks. You've seen them with face paint and cowls and capes and hoods. When's the last time you saw one fighting crime, like third shift in a working CPAP mask?
Exactly. Yeah.
Once right now.
Which is autobiographical because I have a sleep apnea mask, which I should use, but I don't, and I find that's a very
Frank, that's like me. I have one too. It's in the other room, and I should use it, but I don't.
It's an incredibly common thing of like people who are given these things, and they're apparently they're really healthy and can really be very beneficial. And everybody is like me who uses them like 3 times and says, "Screw this! I don't wanna."
I kept waking up with like intensely like sweaty face, like a different mask, and I was like, God, I just don't like this, and I wasn't even sure how much it was doing, but I should get back. Frank, let's get back on the train together. Let's use our sleep apps tonight.
We'll see.
Okay.
So there's those kind of autobiographical elements to this book.
Is that something that you try to work in with each one of your different books?
Well, the thing is I just start off with what I think will be a funny premise for a book, and then and will hopefully be a good story, and then I just pursue it and write it and see where it takes me. I don't plan out things, but autobiography, it just comes through your work. At least it comes through my work without me even like self-consciously saying this is going to be based on my life. My previous book to this, which was a kid's book, Billy Gillis, 7-year-old screenwriter, and the plot of that is this kid. His dad is a screenwriter, and the dad has a heart attack, and so the kids plan. And so because of the heart attack, like the dad is going to lose work, and he's not going to be able to support his family. So the kid decides, I'm going to get my crayon out, and I'm going to write a screenplay, and I'm going to sell it. And I'm going to help my dad and help his situation. And it was only like after I realized it that I realized that kind of the main character, Billy, the kid, he kind of, in a way, was a representation to me of all the people who helped me because I had a heart attack, or I had a quadruple bypass operation a few years ago, and like, so many people were so helpful to me and did whatever they could to help me get through that. But I didn't realize until after I wrote it that that's kind of what Billy represented to me in that book.
Wow.
Interesting.
Just everyone kind of being able to come together and support, and just whatever they can.
And and the book kind of has that spirit of his motivation is not to. He wants the screenplay to sell and make money, but it's not for him. It's for his dad. It's for his family, and this is all within an incredibly silly book, I should add.
That, I think, is really the magic of what you're talking about here, Frank, because it's one thing to write something that's completely off the walls, and it's another thing to write a book that's very serious. But I feel like with what you're going for, you're using, comedy as a framework to actually deliver legitimate, hard-hitting kind of discussions and just address different topics and things like that, which I think makes them land all the better, because for the reader, you might not be expecting these kinds of turns for how the story's going based on, like you're saying, if it's so silly or so fun.
Right.
I mean, the cover for Dark
Yeah,
Apnea, right? But that's really, an incredible combination of things that I think makes the reader remember it more.
Yeah, and I, to me, like in all of my books, I'm just trying to write something that's really fun and enjoyable and funny and entertaining. But as I'm doing that, like stuff from my life comes out, my personality comes through it, and certain issues do arise out of that. But my method of working is just to let that stuff come out naturally.
Perfect.
In the midst of just trying to tell the stupidest story. All my books are pretty stupid, I should say. I should give that a warning. But
well, I have a feeling that definition of stupid is the Larry Blameyer definition of stupid. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, but we've had Larry Blameyer on a couple of times, and he talks about how stupid is his favorite word. And it's not a negative word.
I don't mean it. I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it in just I don't know exactly how I mean it, but I like the idea that they're kind of stupid.
They're kind of stupid. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. It also shows, like, you're not taking yourself too seriously. I mean, you are an intensely funny person. Like you make us laugh all the time. So, it's like it would be surprising if you weren't writing something comedic.
Right,
but also that like these elements of you in there really lend it like some legitimacy as well, other than just being dumb.
Yeah, the real stuff just bleeds through, and you don't plan for it. So you're a pantser. You're a pantser, which is a definition for a person who pulls everybody's pants down. No.
Oh, well, you know what? If there are any authorities listening right now, that is not true. And that's not why I'm in jail right now, for pantsing people.
That's right.
Brig is not for pantsing.
Right.
But
you're in jail because you said yes to an interview.
Exactly.
It really pulled the wool over on you.
Oops.
Really got you good.
But yeah, no, the you write by the seat of your pants. You don't plan, and that is a very popular. We have a lot of authors come on this show, and I'm a novelist myself, and I love talking about what type of writing, what type of writer you are, what's the method, and that's really all very interesting. Let's start with a different genre, and you're clearly exploring all these different genres that you love, that you haven't tried before. Like let's do something, maybe next time it'll be a Western or a 40s noir or something like just different you haven't tried before. And you're like, okay, how do I make this me?
Yeah. But you don't even, or at least I don't even have that moment where I'm like, how do I make this me? I just start writing it and it comes out. But there's some writers really like to carefully plan things out, and others are more like me, just kind of have a looser approach. For whichever individual writer, whatever works for you is the way to go. I don't do an outline, but you know what? An outline is a very practical thing. It's a very sensible thing to do. But I'm not really prone to doing sensible things, so I don't do it. But I read about and I see videos of people talking about, especially in screenwriting, people talk about it more of outlining and planning everything before you really write, and that's not how I do it, but. Maybe that's the best advertisement for doing it that way. But,
no, I disagree.
But I think doing it doing it whichever way is comfortable for you, whichever feels right to you, however you want to approach it. As long as you're writing, you're gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you got to do it your way. You got to find your way. Everybody's got to do it their own way. For me personally, what I love about being a pantser is not only is it fun to see everybody's underpants, but it's sort of the joy of like discovery as you go. You know,
Right.
like if you have,
absolutely.
And it's like what you're saying. You know, you're not planning on getting real in that way when you started writing. You just kind of found yourself there, and well, we're letting this happen. So.
Yeah. And if I end up writing something that has no autobiographical elements to it, that's fine too. You know,
Sure.
It's like I don't, like I said, I'm not planning it, but it's almost like kind of impossible for it not to have that. You know.
Right. Very, very cool. So, guys out there, if you are interested in picking up any of Frank's books, not all 9 are there, but autographed copies are available on dumb-industries.com. That is, of course, Dumb-Industries. Dumb Industries is the production company that puts on the Mads Are Back, and they sell a bunch of your merchandise, and you are kind enough to sell personalized autographed copies. Guys, don't give your money to Amazon. Don't do that.
No.
Why? Go to Dumb-Industries and do it there. Support your local creator. That's what I like to say.
That's the way we're doing it these days, and people either way is fine.
So either way, guys, support the Zon too, I guess. But you won't get it signed.
No. Well, I used to because once the pandemic hit, Trace and I stopped performing live. That's where people used to be able to get signed copies was at our merch table, and that was a big part of our shows. Was Trace and I would set up our merch table in the lobby before our show and after. So it was great because. We always spent anytime we weren't on stage, we were out in the lobby meeting our fans, which was great. One of our first gigs was in this really great club in Chicago, but they put us. The green room was like this dank basement, and we were sitting there, and we were like, this is really depressing. And so we just went upstairs and hung out at the bar, and then we met all our fans. And then from that day on, we were never in a green room again for our shows. We always set up a merch table and sold our merch, but we also got to talk to our fans. And, and that's one of the aspects of live performing that I really miss.
I think that's a neat aspect to the Mads Are Back in a way that you can have this live chat. Like obviously you guys can't interact with it so much, but it at least kind of gives you that, that live audience while still being able to be where everyone is socially distant, online, however makes it convenient for everyone. So it kind of like, it just brings it a little step in the right direction, but obviously, nothing touches a true live performance and having all the fans there and that energy is unmatched. But it's cool to have an element of that with the Mads Are Back.
Yeah, it's a fun part of it, and we're very grateful to be doing the digital shows. To have that option was a real lifesaver when the pandemic hit. Let me tell you.
Well, right. Something Tim and I were saying to Chris was, during the pandemic, the show really helped us get through a week. It's really was a special thing because, you can't go anywhere, can't do anything. And you guys would have a random Tuesday night event. And it's like, oh, wow, look at this thing that's happening. And it's this Tuesday and it's cheap money. And we can go and have a 2.5 hours of fun. And there's a Q&A and you guys would get guests. And
the Q&A kind of... it came accidentally. We weren't even planning on that. But what happened was when we first started doing it, we were doing films that we had done live. And one of the first films we did was the Vincent Price movie, The Tingler. And I forget who, but or I think she could, like Vincent Price's daughter contacted us.
Victoria Price.
Yeah, and said... Wow. And we were like, well, let's have her on for a Q&A. And that was our first Q&A, and she was delightful, And so that was like another example of just something spontaneously coming to be. And now we wouldn't think of doing the show without a Q&A.
Right. It is a fun part. I really love the Q&A section. Victoria Price is very nice. I met her years ago at a con. She's the stories that woman has. Oh,
I know.
So precious as a fan of her father.
The one thing we all have in common with her is that we love Vincent Price too. So
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Get along on that.
Man, I still haven't seen that episode of The Mads Are Back. I know you guys did that, and I got to go back. But luckily, you can purchase old episodes on the website.
Yeah, we have a whole library now of episodes.
Really cool.
Available.
Yeah,
that people can buy.
Super.
Yeah, the
awesome.
on-demand aspect makes it extra fun for people who are just learning about it now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as we're kind of winding down with our time with you this evening, I know the chaise is comfortable. You're probably tempted to stay, but so Mystery Science Theater is the elephant in the room. If we could ask you just a few more things about
whatever you
Mystery
want.
Science Theater. So in 1990, you were initially hired on the show as head writer.
No, that's fake news. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was
we
hired.
Want the real news.
I was hired as a writer, but Mike Nelson was already the head writer when I was, and he was always the head writer the whole time.
Okay.
I was there.
So you were a writer on the show, and then you transitioned, and that was before you were approached to be an actor, right? Like you were first just a writer.
Yeah, I was hired as a writer, and Jay Elvis had left the show, and I was replacing him as a writer. But I think it was always in their mind that I would probably be his replacement on camera as well. But it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't when I was first hired, though. That wasn't a subject. It was just you're our new writer, and I was so thrilled about that I wasn't even thinking about whether I'd be on the show. And then I think they did a test with me in the costume and everything, and apparently the camera loved me. So I just so then it was a foregone conclusion after that I would be the bumbling mad scientist assistant,
the lovable bumbling.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the spit curl probably just happened, right? You showed up with that, and you're like, "What? This is me. This is just me."
Yeah.
So is it true? Is this also fake news? Is it true that it was primarily your job to actually find the films that you guys...
No, that's absolutely true. Because as I pointed out before, everyone on the staff, on the writing staff, had another duty besides being a writer. Mike Nelson did all the music for the show. Kevin Murphy was the editor of the show. He was in the editing bay when he wasn't in the writing room. Joel and Trace were designing the sets and coming up with the props and stuff like that. But I was the only one on staff with no other talent except watching television. So when it came to be decided that someone should screen the films before, someone should watch the entire films before we decide to riff them, then that job fell to me, and I was happy to do it, because I don't know if you know this, but what happened was one of the first films we did when I was there was this film called Side Hackers, which was a biker film, and we watched like 20 minutes of it. Oh, this will be great. And then we got the rights to it and everything. And then when we went to write the whole film, we saw, oh my God, there's this horrible rape scene, that we had no interest in writing riffs for. We cut the scene out. But the point was, let's screen these films and make sure that they're appropriate for the kind of sensibility of this show.
Right. And I've heard you talk many times about, not just you, but other cast members and writers from the show say that, not every movie ends up being really that riffable. Like it might, even if the subject matter is okay, it's like sometimes it's just like, yeah,
No, there were, and when I screened the films, like most of the films I watched were not riffable. They were so bad you couldn't hear or see what was going on, or if they have too much dialogue in them, that's a problem because you need space for the riffs.
Right? Yeah, you can't just be talking over.
You can't be talking over people. It doesn't work as well. So there are all kinds of factors like that, that lead to you deciding which film to do or not.
Well, thanks to your, efforts, your toils, your labor of love, whatever it may be, the world has rediscovered films like Manos, Hands of Fate, Monster a Go-Go, Zombie Nightmare, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, Teenagers from Outer Space, Ega, Pod People, so many more. I have no idea how many others. I mean, Frank, from all of us to all of you, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. All of me and both of me appreciate that.
Oh, good. We just had a man called Frank Dietz on the show. That's what he's called. Mm. And Frank Dietz was the cop in Zombie Nightmare.
Cool.
And he actually he's also in Black Roses, and he had a string of fun 80s horror movies. He also did the wonderful Beast Wishes documentary about Bob and Kathy Burns, which is out there and you should definitely see. But anyway, he was saying, he owes so much to you, Frank, because he said without you, people wouldn't have ever rediscovered Zombie Nightmare, and it truly is one of the best episodes. It's just absolutely. It's so good.
That's the one that has Adam West in it, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said he remained friends with Adam West for years and years and years.
Oh, that's cool. Well, one of the great things, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but is that every actor that I've ever met that was in a Mystery Science Theater film or a film that we riffed on Mystery Science Theater, they all were very happy about what we did, and they were all thought it was funny and cool. And Miles O'Keefe, the star of Cave Dwellers, he called us up and he said, "Oh man, that was great. I love that." And Kim Cattrall, who was in City Limits, she ended up becoming our friend and is a yeah. She and Trace are good friends, and I've become friends with her in the last few years. She came and when we did the Alamo Draft House in Brooklyn, she introduced us and stuff.
Oh wow!
Yeah, she's a delightful person, and so I love that the people that were in the films weren't insulted. From what I've heard, urban legends about Joe Don Baker wanting to kill us and stuff like that. But like I said, those are just urban legends. And also, what was a big deal for me was Beverly Garland, who was in those Roger Corman films, and who I grew up watching on My Three Sons, and who's so great, and I love her, I adore her. She was at our first convention, and she was just so delightful, and it was such a joy to meet her. And stuff like that is, it means a lot to me that they take it the right way, and they know we're not trying to trash them and stuff. We're just having fun with with movies that they knew, were not that great. But most actors, their job is to make something that's not that good better. Most of the time, that's just what they're doing.
I can't believe you mentioned Miles O'Keefe. I was going to ask about Miles O'Keefe, and since you mentioned him already, I'll ask about Arch Hall Jr. Did you ever meet him?
I've never met him. I think Joel met him. After we did the show, and apparently he was cool about the whole thing.
Nice.
That I hope is true, and he's apparently he still does personal appearances, and he has a band and stuff.
He still does music, and he was in a movie a few years ago, and I cannot remember what it's called, but it was an anthology movie, like a creep show type with Felissa Rose. From Sleepaway Camp, and he was in one of the segments. When I read the cast, I was just like, Felissa Rose,
blown away.
Arch Hall Jr.
Yeah,
right.
Oh my god!
And this is something I only found out a few years ago, is that his dad, Arch Hall Sr., who I think wrote and produced EGA and wrote and produced The Choppers, which is a film Trace and I did that starred. There's a whole movie about him. I never knew it was about him. It's called The Last Time I Saw Archie. Robert Mitchum plays him in the movie.
What?
And the movie was directed by Jack Webb and starring Jack Webb. And it's a comedy. And the screenwriter who wrote it, he knew Arch Hall in the Army, and apparently he was like a real operator and kind of a con man and stuff. And he wrote about he wrote a movie about him, and Jack Webb directed it. And Jack Webb the writer William Bowers. Jack Webb plays him in the movie, and Robert Mitchum plays Arch Hall. And it's not, it's kind of just like a middling comedy. It's not that great. It's not that. I mean, Robert Mitchum is always worth watching, but
sure,
and Jack Webb too, I might add. But I always, the whole time we were doing the show, I was aware of that movie, The Last Time I Saw Archie, but I never knew that it was literally about Arch Hall Sr.
That is
wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely blown my mind.
Yeah. It totally blew my mind when I first found out about it.
Unbelievable. I've always had just a weird fascination. I just love the EGI episode, and it's just, you guys are so ruthless with making fun of him and his hair, and he's the Cabbage Patch Elvis, and I just felt like
I think
wonder.
After Trace and I did the Choppers, and one thing I think is kind of touching is the fact that Arch Hall Sr. was very supportive of Arch Hall Jr. and really thought he had the makings of like another Elvis or something, and put up his own money or raise the money, however he did it, to make these movies starring his son, and I think there's something very sweet about that.
I agree.
Really is.
I fully agree. Yeah, there is that, and honestly, the sadist is Arch Hall Jr.'s best performance. It's actually he's pretty good in that. But I wanted to one more thing, and then I want to get to some. We have a couple of more than a couple. Questions from our Facebook group, from our Retroids, I want to get to before you get out of here. But I have to ask you this, and there's a little preamble. So one of my favorite things about the show is to, you and Trace, your segments were always so incredibly funny. And I love how, whenever it was either Joel or it was Mike, and they would do these things where they would sort of reenact a scene that was just recently in the movie. They would sort of just reenact it very cheaply. And you guys usually did not get involved with that. Usually that's a Joel or Mike and the Bots sort of a deal. That's one of their things that they do. And my favorite episode of all time is Pod People by far. Yeah. And one of the greatest of all time songs from the show is definitely Idiot Control Now. And it's just oh my God, the moment when they are doing the Idiot Control Now, and then the camera goes to you and Trace, and you guys are also just in on it, and you're just having fun for no reason at all. And you're just in costume and everything. And Trace says the line, he's pretty good. And then there's you with your I'm a Virgin shirt, and you're just twisting there, and you're like, good. He's the best. that moment, fun. That moment. So my question is this: are you privy to the recent uncovered information about that Virgin shirt?
I am not. I'm wondering if it's been updated to I'm an incel shirt, but but I'm not privy to any tangible things.
Okay, so here it is, real quick. There's a company called Severin Films. Okay, they are releasing a super deluxe Blu-ray of the movie Pod People that was also called Pod People, but they're using the name Extraterrestrial Visitors. And there's various tiers. You can just get the Blu-ray, or you can get some extras or this or that, whatever. Well, the big bomb diggum Trumpy version comes with a whole bunch of stuff, including a plush Trumpy and also an I'm a Virgin shirt. But the great thing about it is so incredibly accurate that you get to see it for the first time. The actual shirt says, "I'm a virgin islander." The word islander is underneath the word virgin, really, really small.
Oh, wow.
Right?
So we were misinterpreting it this whole time, right?
This whole time. So I go back and I'm like, wait a second, hold on a second. Right? So I go back and I found a screen cap of the guy from the actual movie, the good, he's the best guy. And sure as shit, you can see under the word virgin, there is a blob of text that you cannot read because the quality of the film is so terrible. But sure enough, it definitely says, it must say islander. And of course, that makes it totally funny. And so it's like, okay, the reason, because my whole life loving this episode, I'm like, but why? Why does this shirt exist? Why would this character wear this shirt? I don't understand why the shirt exists, why they put it in this movie. And the fact is that it's actually a pretty funny tongue-in-cheek joke that we could never actually get because the quality of the movie was so bad.
It's like something you'd buy when you in a tourist shop when you went to the Virgin Islands, right? Yeah,
right.
Well,
Like
that kind of puts things in perspective that I'm not sure I wanted to know.
Isn't that so funny though? Like that is just so funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's written so much smaller than the rest of the typeface.
Yeah, well, I think that's the point too. But if this is what 4K restorations or Blu-ray were made for, so that you can read the text on people's T-shirts.
Yeah, it's kind of like if there's that T-shirt, the I got lost at the Gay Dolphin, and it's like if you only saw the words "Gay Dolphin" really big, in a really lo-fi screen or something, you're like, why does this shirt say "Gay Dolphin"? I don't understand. So Joe, I know you had a couple of questions for Frank before we get to the retro stuff.
I just want to say that your chemistry with Trace is just amazing, and I'm sure there was like moments where you had hard time recording your parts. So like, was there like a specific episode or skit that you guys had trouble getting through?
I know there were. And the only reason I can remember one is because it was used in a blooper reel or something. Was the one where I'm trying to say I don't think on Soul Brother, and for some reason I couldn't get it out, and I just broke up laughing. There was a lot of that happened. I think that probably happened on most of the sketches we did, where there would be takes ruined because we were laughing so hard, so that was like part of the fun of doing those sketches.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite things is like watching actors just breaking out of character because they just can't control themselves. Because trying not to laugh, like with Saturday Night Live, like I love watching some of these older skits where they just can't keep together, but they have to keep.
Yeah, I was just on TikTok. I just saw one of the Debbie Downer skits where they're
I love the Debbie Downer.
I know. And,
Rachel Dratch.
They're at Disney World, and
yes,
and Lindsay Lohan is in it, and they can't keep it together, and the audience loves that when that happens, and it's almost the kind of thing where professionally, as a performer, you have to try not to do that because the audience loves it so much that then you can just crack up during every sketch, and
it becomes like a crutch almost.
Yeah, it becomes exactly. That's exactly what I was going for. It can become a crutch, but I think in this case, it's just very genuine, and it just adds to the enjoyment of the Carol on the Carol Burnett show that used to happen all the time.
Oh yes,
and it was,
yes.
Really,
I was just going to say
really fun when it did, but they didn't do it. They didn't overdo it, I don't think. But
Right. Yeah, Tim Conway and Harvey Korman.
And Harvey Korman, yeah.
Harvey Korman could not freaking hold it together whenever Tim Conway was there. All Tim Conway had to do was just look at him. And he was just so dead serious. And I feel like Tim Conway never
I had that too, I think, with one of the sketches where I think where Mike was playing Torgo, delivering pizza. And I couldn't look at him without laughing. And I remember that was a struggle to get a usable take out of that.
Nice. Oh man, that's freaking hilarious.
I feel like we saw some of that too in when we were doing Golden Girls, when we were watching that. Like, you see certain episodes where all the actors play it so straight, and then sometimes just one of the lines, Betty White will say something or someone says something and it catches them so sideways that like they're in the take having to like muster up everything to not break. And those moments are huge.
Especially really when it was B. Arthur breaking, because she's that was a hard thing to do.
Plays it the straightest of anyone.
Yeah,
no, totally. Those moments are infectious, but you don't want to give into them too much.
Infectious is exactly the word for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tim, do you want to ask about Invader Zim real quick?
I do. I know we're kind of running close on time here. So, Frank, we got to see you do so many great things with Mystery Science Theater and everything, but you also have written for Invader Zim, and I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you became involved with that project.
My working on Invader Zim was one of the rare instances when I lived in LA where my agent actually got me a job. That happened very rarely.
Weird.
Most times I got jobs, like when I worked on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I got jobs because I knew people, and then like on someone I knew from Sabrina was the showrunner of Drew Carey, so I got to work on that. That's like mostly kind of how I got jobs, but this was a case where my agent sent me to Nickelodeon. They were looking for a writer for this show they were developing called Invader Zim, and so I just went and I met with the people there. I met with Jonah Vasquez, and I'd been given material to read before I went there, and I forget what it was, but I mentioned in our meeting to Jonah that I thought this particular thing, I thought that was really funny. And I didn't realize that, but that like so helped me get the job just by saying that, because apparently he had a huge argument with the Nickelodeon executives who wanted him to drop it and didn't think it was funny. And then here I was coming in and saying that I thought it was funny. But so anyway, I just got hired there, and I worked there for one season, and it was a great experience. I was really happy to be there, and the people who worked on that show, the animators and the designers and the artists, I mean, they were all so talented, and people come up to me and say, "Wow, I loved Invader Zim," and I always, of course, I'm very happy to take the compliment, but I really, the greatness of that show, I have to say I didn't have as much to do with it as Jonah and the artists and the designers and all the people who worked on that show. I mean, I feel completely unselfconscious saying it's a great show, because it's not great because I was there. It's just great.
Yeah, wow. You contributed to it, but the ball was in motion, for being the show that it was.
Yeah, exactly. And most people I know in animation agree that Nickelodeon made a huge mistake by canceling it. That it probably would have been a SpongeBob level cultural phenomenon if they had kept it on the air, but they made the wrong decision there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a show that I think, at the time was really out there and a breath of fresh air, and everyone I knew loved it, and then just the fact that it got pulled was kind of that thing we were talking about of stuff being, maybe too risky, maybe not, worth it to a company, and they just get gun shy and they pull the plug too early. And it's like, I mean, Netflix did that movie in 2019 to bring that, that world back a bit. So there was obviously and still an appetite for it for them to do that, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a cool, unique show. Of the episodes that you did write, do you have a particular favorite?
I don't. You know what? I don't have a specific enough memory of that. It was all kind of one thing to me because the way animation is made, it's not like in live action where you write the show and then you tape it on Friday and then I mean, kind of everything kind of happens at once when you're working on a show like that.
Yep. And then one other question is, you had mentioned Sabrina. You had mentioned we had worked with animation briefly with 101 Dalmatians. I saw there was a.
Oh, I did. That was very briefly. I think I was supposed to write episodes of that, and what happened was I got too busy. So one instance in my life where I had to turn down work. Believe me, that doesn't happen often. So yeah, I didn't. I think I would have been on the staff of that, but then I got hired on Sabrina, and like my agent had to finesse it and say, Frank can't work here, and they were kind of pissed, I think. But then I ended up working with one of the Disney executives again, and he was cool about it. So
good.
That was
cool. Nice.
That was okay.
Nice. I'll end this with the question I have, which is, I would love to see you write for a original cartoon. Was that something you've considered or something?
Oh, I've always I've done various things through the years. I've done pilots. I did a pilot for Nickelodeon International several years ago called Akihabara at Deep, which was an anime thing, and they actually flew me to Tokyo to meet the company that was making it. Was like an incredible experience, and it would have been a great thing to do, but then it just never got picked up, And there's a couple of others. I did Motor City with Chris Parnowski at his animation company, and then I think he ended up doing it years later with someone else. But when I did it, it was a pilot for MTV, and it didn't get picked up. That's just a very common thing in the biz. But I would have loved to have gotten on an animated show or created an animated show that would have gotten picked up. And I've through the years, like I've schemed with artists and animators to come up with pitches for shows, but like nothing ever really like took off from that.
It seems like Billy Gillis would be just a really perfect thing to adapt for a company like DreamWorks or Pixar or something like that. It seems like there's a lot of heart there.
From your mouth to God's ear,
Well, I got him on speed dial.
Oh, well, good. Yeah, I would.
He actually watches the show. So
I think any number of my books are very viable IPs. I'm the only one who thinks that. So
we think it too, Frank.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
No
awesome.
problem.
Great. Well, thank you for that insight there, Frank. I mean, it's it's just interesting to kind of to think about, and it would be awesome to see a show with your name as writer on it, because you're such a funny man and have so many great ideas for stuff like this that it just makes perfect sense. You're like you've said, your level of like stupid, silly cartoons just make a lot of sense.
Maybe it'll happen at some point. You never know. You never know. The thing is I'm in a very lucky position right now in my career where Trace and I are actually making a living from doing our monthly shows.
That's
and then I'm able to create things on my own that I can have complete creative control over. And it's really great. I would love for something like that to happen, but I'm very grateful for where I am right now.
That's amazing. You know, I tell everybody about the Mads Are Back, and I truly am a big fan, and I think everybody should check it out. And I think it's I said this to Chris. I think it's the best version of all the spin-offs. It's my personal favorite. Seeing you and Trace.
Thank you.
It is, seeing you and Trace actually get to riff together is so special as a fan.
Yeah, we have a great time, and Trace always makes me laugh whenever we're riffing.
I love that. I love it when you laugh at him.
Funny, really funny lines. Sometimes just off the cuff that really catch me.
Awesome stuff. So we have just a few more Retroid questions I will get to right now. So we have Colleen the Conqueror asked a couple of questions already. She one of the Invader Zim questions was hers. I just want to shout out to Colleen. Thank you for the questions. She also says, you've portrayed yourself as so many characters throughout the years. Do you find that you have one that you carry around with you or that occupies your headspace more often than others?
Of characters that I've played, I think I've only played one character my whole.
So it's an easy question.
Yeah, it is. I carry. I'm always basically played a version of myself in anything I've ever played. But I did on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I did play a fully grown infant. And that was a very memorable experience. I think that's my other great role besides TV's Frank is Rudy Kazudi, the 40-year-old baby.
Oh man, what about Moodsy Owl?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I've in live shows and stuff. That was a character I played. Moodsy, the clinically depressed owl, in my show Cartoon Dump, which I did in LA and in New York for a while. That's something I might revive at some point. I still have the owl costume, so.
Yeah, I have a good friend who lives out in LA who, when I told him that you were coming on the show, he was very excited, and he said that he had seen you numerous times doing Cartoon Dump.
Yeah, that was really fun doing that show, and. It could come back if I ever go out and do live performances again, which I hope to do. I am getting out and doing some stand up and stuff these days. But
that's great. Well, you're in New York, we're in Massachusetts, so we got to keep an eye on the calendar, and we'll have to come out.
Where in Massachusetts are you?
We're like the Worcester area, so it's about 40 minutes from Boston.
Oh, nice.
Kind of. Yeah, not too bad. So also from Colleen, she says Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a super fun show to watch.
Agreed.
Not to eat, but to watch. Do you have any favorite stories or celebrity interactions from working on and appearing on that show? Obviously, you just told us the baby, but is there anything else?
Oh, well, there were... well, first of all, it was a great staff to work with, and Nick Bakay, who was the voice of Salem the cat, he was also a writer on the show, and he's like one of the funniest people ever. So just to work with him was amazing, and the whole writing staff was great on that show, and I did have some really good celebrity encounter. Maybe that's the only show I've ever done that. Like where I really met a lot of celebrities, but we had the cast of Laugh-In for one show, and that was a joy. Joanne Worley and Ruth Buzzy, and Alan Seuss, and it was great to meet and hang out with those people. Shirley Jones was on an episode. And she was just so sweet and delightful. Dom DeLuise was on an episode. It was thrilling to meet him, and and there were Steve Allen was on, and I got to meet him and stuff, and there were a lot of and one of our cast members was a guy named Paul Feig, who went on to become a hugely successful filmmaker and producer. And is one of the nicest guys ever. So So yeah, it was a really good experience. I was on that show for like 4 seasons. It was great.
Wow,
Nice.
very cool.
Yeah,
That is really
awesome.
cool.
So many great stories there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last question from Dustin Braga. He asks, you have worked, or he says, he gets to his question, you have worked as a writer on many prolific series over the years, in case you didn't know, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Solidifying yourself as an incredibly strong comedic writer in projects where you both write and act, have you ever had a moment where you questioned something you wrote while shooting it? Like, why did I write that moment? And if so, do you change the line on the spot, or do you just kind of grit your teeth and work through it?
Well, you know, when you work on in Hollywood on a sitcom like I did on Sabrina and the Drew Carey Show, like so much stuff gets rewritten in the process between writing the script and then doing the table read and then doing the run through and then and then filming the show, and you're always rewriting stuff, and that's like kind of one of the professional skills you need to have, I think, to be a comedy writer is the ability not just to come up with stuff, but the ability to think on your feet and change a line, and also not become precious about your work, you know, and not become too attached to it, you know, because you might not even agree with someone saying, "Oh, you have to change that. We need a different line there." You might not agree with it, but if you're not the showrunner yourself, then it's your job to change the line and hopefully come up with a better one. So I think in the process of working on a show like that, you don't even have the luxury of saying, "Why did I write that?" You know, you're like. Yeah, I did write that, and now it has to change, and nobody likes it. So why did I write it? Because I thought it was good. Hey, guess what? I'm wrong. You know, or something along those lines. You know, but that situation that the questioner asked, like, were you ever in that situation? Like, writing on TV shows, you're in that situation like every day. You know, of like having to change stuff.
You just got to have thick skin and not take it personally.
Yes, and you do, and I didn't always have thick skin. Sometimes I did take it personally, you know, but the way to be a professional is to not storm out of the room and throw things and say, "How dare you question my genius?" You know,
I am TV's Frank.
Yes, exactly. The professional thing is to just sit down and go, "Okay, what can we come up with now?"
Right.
Yeah.
I played Hamlet at Cambridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Not to get too overly attached to any one idea, and just to keep creating and keep going, and not put all your eggs in any one basket, because, you know, the way that other people look at things is they have to be critical and unbiased, and they have to, you know, honestly be looking for what they want. So sometimes what you make isn't perfect, and it's not easy
or it might be good to your way of thinking, but you know, the people who are paying for the show, and sometimes they might not really know what the hell they're doing, but if they tell you, you know, they'll give you notes, and you just have to address them. And I think the people who are really good at working in Hollywood, who produce, you know, quality stuff, I think a lot of it is that they figured out how to navigate all of that and to address one note, so they don't have to address another note. You know what I mean? So they can get the stuff in that they like. The example of that comes to my mind is Martin Scorsese in Casino had the guy where the guy's head is in a visor and his eye pops out, and he actually filmed you seeing the eye pop out because he knew they would tell him you have to take that out. And so then he still was able to show the rest of the scene, which was still pretty gnarly anyway, you know.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah. That's really cool though, and that's definitely a talent to have. It's not something that you might expect to need, but yeah, anticipating being able to react and just kind of keep it loosey.
Well, the key to writing, even just writing on my own, the key to writing is rewriting. And all of my books, I do like at least 15 drafts of all of them, and I do a lot of revisions and. Just keep changing it and hopefully making it better,
Yep.
And then you got to just know when enough is enough, and you got to stick that fork in no matter what. And you get to that point, you're like, nope, walk away.
Well, yeah, at a certain point, I just get sick of it and go.
Yeah, well, it's that old adage. It's never going to be perfect. Art is never finished. It's just abandoned. So it's very true.
It's very true. Yeah,
it's very true. Frank, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute freaking blast to have you on. Absolute, just childhood dream come true. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Oh, awesome!
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah,
that's so great. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here, before we let you out of the brig?
Well, I'm actually now I'm like James Whitmore in Shawshank Redemption. I'm getting to like prison life. But anyway, we already plugged my book, so we did that, and I'll just tell people the second Tuesday of every month that they can tune in to The Mads Are Back, where we do a new riff of a movie. I don't know what the movie for next month is going to be yet, but it's going to be something crappy. So
love it.
Yeah.
I hope so. That's why I'm here. Yeah, so everybody go to dumb-industries.com. There's a bunch of dumb stuff, bunch of stupid dumb stuff for you to enjoy, including old episodes, new episodes, t-shirts, signed books of Frank's, and posters. You guys have a great poster artist that does stuff.
We really do.
I mean, just absolutely awesome. Really, really great stuff. Very unique artist. And there's always a new print for each episode, and I love that. I love seeing what the new one is. Even the shorts get great posters. It's got to be kind of tough, I would think. And the new one has the guy with the Mylar right in the front.
Yes,
the big sheet of Mylar.
Absolutely.
Also, if you guys listen to that shorts number 11, the word Mylar will be forever broken for you.
For those of you who love the word Mylar previously.
Or who have never thought whether or not they do or not. Like it's not something that comes up all the time. But after that episode, you'll know for sure. So from all of us to all of you, thank you guys for listening. It has been an absolute blast. That wraps up the episode. Thanks to Frank Conniff and thanks to the Mads Are Back. If you haven't jumped that ship by now, we certainly hope you've enjoyed this week's bonus journey over the treacherous waters of all the things that made growing up awesome. If you like what you've heard, please hit that little subscribe button and like us on Facebook and or Twitter. As well as being part of the Inebri-Art podcast network, Retro Ridoctopus is also a full-fledged member of the Dorkening podcast network. So if you get a chance, please check out our sister shows like the weekly Warp Pipe, Shark Bites, That Strange Show, the East Meets West podcast, Then Is Now, Amalga Files. Hey, there's like 30 shows on the network, and they're all cool. Frank, I mean, you got to back me up on this one, right? It's good stuff.
I'm totally backing you up.
This is good stuff. Right?
A ringing endorsement.
He knows. For more information or to subscribe to us or any of these great shows, please visit thedorkening.com and be sure to check out our killer sponsors, Deadly Grounds Coffee to die for. My name is TV's Parasite Steve, but only for the evening. And it is indeed a sad thing that your adventures have ended here. Good night, everybody.
Retro Ridoctopus. Retro
Oh my gosh. Frank, I'm so nervous I can't even say my own script.
Frank, you got him all geflemmed.
Jeez. We're through it. I have been your host, Parasite Steve, aka TV's Parasite Steve, aka Steve of something or another. I can't even remember my home address at this moment. And it has indeed been a sad thing that you have ended here. I gotta go to bed.
I gotta have a snack. My blood sugar's low.
Woo!
Oh shit.
I'm just gonna use one of those.
Okay.